responsibility. In this environment, the emergence of stable, democratic, and responsible energy-producing nations has become more strategically important than ever. Guyana is increasingly playing that role. The country is becoming an important partner in the Western Hemisphere and a growing strategic ally for the United States. That importance was underscored recently when Secretary of State Marco Rubio chose Guyana as one of his first engagements following the U.S. election, highlighting the strength and the importance of the relationship between our two countries. President Ali has guided his nation through an extraordinary moment in its history. He has done so with a focus on responsible development, international cooperation, and ensuring that the benefits of this transformation are shared by the people of Guyana. Building on the great contributions of Hess, Chevron brings a long-term commitment to Guyana's success, deep offshore experience, and a rich history of collaborating with partners and host governments. Guyana will play a major role in delivering the energy the world needs for decades to come, and Chevron is proud to partner in driving that progress. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm Houston welcome to the President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, His Excellency, Dr. Mohamed Irfaan Ali.
Distinguished industry leaders, innovators, investors, engineers, researchers, representatives of governments, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to address this distinguished gathering at the Offshore Technology Conference 2026 here in Houston, a forum that has for decades helped shape the direction of a global energy industry. This is not merely a conference about offshore technology. It is a meeting point for the ideas, investments, and innovations that will determine how the world powers its economies, sustain its people, and secure its future. We meet at a time of profound change, but also of profound tension. Across the world, there is a dominant narrative that we are in the midst of an energy transition. We speak about decarbonization, renewable energy, electrification, hydrogen, artificial intelligence, and the technologies that will define a cleaner future. They're essential conversation. They are necessary, and they must continue. However, question of volume, scale, cost, and reliability are also underpinning this conversation. But before we speak about the future, we must confront the reality of the present. We must ask a simple, practical, and an unavoidable question. Are we producing enough energy to meet the needs of the world today at an efficient cost? This is not a philosophical question, nor is it an ideological one. It is a question grounded in the daily functioning of the global economy. It is a question about whether factories can operate, whether hospitals can function, whether food can be produced and transported, whether homes can be cooled and heated, whether data can be processed, and whether economies can grow. And in all of these questions, one example today, what is happening on the Strait of Hormuz is teaching us an important lesson. The answer based on available data is increasingly uncertain. Global energy supply has increased steadily since 1965. Yet, over that same period, global energy demand has risen relentlessly. Between 1965 and 1990, the imbalance between supply and demand was relatively modest and manageable. The global energy system, while under pressure, was able to adjust. However, Since 2010, that balance has shifted. Demand has accelerated at a pace the supply has struggled to match. The result has been a widening gap between the energy the world requires and the energy it produces. The widening gap is not a short-term fluctuation. It is a structural development. As economies reopened, demand rebounded sharply after the COVID-19 pandemic. Industrial production resumed, transportation surged, and energy consumption increased rapidly. Supply, however, did not keep pace at the same rate. The result was a post-pandemic environment characterized by a rapid increase in demand, constrained supply growth, and the emergence of a record-high energy gap, further driven today by AI, digitization, and technology. This has had tangible consequences. The widening gap has placed sustained pressure on global energy reserves. It has contributed to price volatility across markets. It has reinforced a seller's market dynamic in energy commodities, and it has heightened the risk of instability in both developed and developing countries. It has also revealed a fundamental truth. The global energy challenge is not only about transition, it is about volume and sufficiency. The world does not simply need cleaner energy, it needs significantly more energy. To understand the scale of this challenge, we must look beyond global aggregates and examine regional dynamics. Between 2021 and 2024, the growth in energy demand and supply has been uneven across regions, but the underlying pattern remains consistent. In Asia Pacific, energy demand grew by 3.95%. In South and Central America, annual demand growth was approximately 3.99%. In Africa, demand grew by 3.24%. The Middle East exhibited more synchronized growth between demand and supply, and we know why. The Commonwealth of Independent States presented a different pattern. Supply growth of approximately 2.92% slightly exceeded demand growth at 2.85%. North America recorded demand growth of 1.77% annually. Europe stood as the only region with negative growth in both demand and supply. This contraction reflects structural changes, including the shift away from Russian pipeline gas and the impact of high energy prices, rather than a resolution of demand pressure. Taken together, these regional dynamics point to a clear and consistent conclusion. The energy gap is widening. Demand continues to outpace supply, and the global energy system is under increasing strain. This reality must shape how we think about the energy transition. The global response to rising demand and climate concerns has been the acceleration of energy transition. Over the past 3 decades, the growth of renewable energy has been remarkable. In the 1990s, renewable accounted for approximately 3% of global energy mix. Since then, countries around the world have incentivized their systems to focus on renewable technology, to advance energy security and climate targets. As a result, renewable energy has become the fastest growing component of the global energy system. But I want you to remember these 2 points. The objective was incentivize the system for energy security and climate security, because I want to address that a bit later. Since 2006, renewable energy has grown at more than 4 times the annual rate of global energy demand. Over the past 5 years, that growth has accelerated further. reaching more than 5 times the rate of overall energy demand growth. This expansion was driven by several key factors: technological innovation, economies of scale in manufacturing, supportive policy frameworks, and declining costs, though still capital heavy. The impact is evident in electricity generation. Between 2013 and 2024, global renewable energy electricity generation increased by nearly 69%. That is just over a decade. Solar energy expanded 15-fold. Wind energy increased almost 4-fold. Hydropower grew by more than 55%. Nuclear energy increased by approximately 5.3%. Solar, wind, and hydropower together accounted for more than 89% of the total expansion in renewable electricity during this decade. This figure demonstrates that renewables are now a central pillar of the global energy system. They're scaling, they're becoming more cost competitive, and they're increasingly integral to national energy strategies. However, this progress must be viewed in context. Despite the rapid expansion of renewable energy, fossil fuels continue to dominate the global energy system. As of 2024, fossil fuels accounted for more than 80% of the global energy mix. This is not a contradiction. It is a reflection of the scale of global energy demand. The world is not replacing one energy system with another in a linear fashion. It is building a new system while continuing to rely on the existing system to meet the majority of its energy needs. At the same time, the composition of fossil fuel use is also evolving. Coal, despite being the most carbon-intensive fuel, has seen significant growth in electricity generation, increasing by more than 70% over the past decade. The growth has been driven largely by industrialization in emerging economies where coal remains the most accessible and affordable baseload energy source. Natural gas has also expanded, with electricity generation increasing by 26.6%. Gas plays a critical role in balancing the intermittency of renewable energy, providing flexible and reliable power when solar and wind generation fluctuate. Oil, by contrast, has seen a steady decline in its role in electricity generation. These trends highlight an important point. The energy transition is not a simple substitution of fossil fuels with renewables. It is a complex configuration of the entire energy system. Renewables are expanding, but they are not yet sufficient to meet demand. Fossil fuels continue to play a central role, particularly in meeting baseload demand and supporting industrial revolution. And global energy demand continues to grow. This creates a paradox. The world is pursuing an energy transition in a context where demand is rising, supply is under pressure, and existing energy systems remain indispensable. This is a reality that must inform policy, investment, and strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, if the first reality we must confront is the widening energy gap, the second is the scale and distribution of investment required to address it. The transformation of the global energy system is not simply a technological challenge. It is fundamentally a financial one. Over the past decade, the global investment in energy has reached unprecedented levels. According to the International Energy Agency, total global energy investment reached approximately $3.3 trillion in 2025, the highest level ever recorded. The figure reflects both the urgency and the scale of global energy demand. But the composition of that investment is equally important. Of the total investment in 2025, approximately 65.2% was directed towards clean energy. 34.8% was invested in fossil fuels. Since 2016, investment in clean energy has consistently exceeded investment in fossil fuels. This is a structural change in the global energy economy. The distribution of the investment provides insight into the priorities of transition. 34.1% was directed to renewable power, 23.6% to grids and storage, 3.6% to nuclear and other clean power, 0.96% to low-emission fuels, and 37.7% to energy efficiency and end use. These figures show that the transition is not only about generation, it is also about infrastructure, systems, and efficiency. Electricity generation alone cannot deliver the transition. It must be supported by modern grids, storage capacity, and improvement in how energy is used. While global investment has increased significantly, it remains insufficient to meet the scale of the challenge. To align with climate targets, particularly the goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, investment must increase dramatically. According to the Energy Transition Outlook, achieving a pathway consistent with limiting warming below 2 degrees Celsius will require annual global energy investment of approximately $4.3 trillion between 2025 and 2060. Major economies are already facing difficulties in meeting their own targets. To achieve this, the United States would need to increase annual investment by 76%, European countries by 36%, and China just under 30%. Now, none of these figures took into consideration the current global challenges and geopolitical realities. Global clean energy investment is highly concentrated, and I want us to pay specific attention to this. In both 2015 and 2025, the overwhelming share of investment was concentrated in a small number of economies: China, the United States, the European Union. In 2015, these three accounted for more than 87% of global clean energy investment. By 2025, they still accounted for more than 82%. In 2025 alone, China invested approximately $628 billion, the United States $401 billion, and the European Union $387 billion. By contrast, Africa accounted for approximately $50 billion, or less than 3% of global investment. Latin America accounted for approximately $68 billion. South Asia, $48 billion. The Middle East accounted for approximately $40 billion. This imbalance has profound implications. The regions with the fastest growing energy demand are not the regions receiving the largest share of investment. The Global South, where demand is rising most rapidly, remains highly underfunded. This raises a fundamental question: can the energy transition succeed if the regions with the greatest need have the least access to capital? The financing challenge is particularly acute for emerging markets and developing economies. Excluding China, these countries face a massive shortfall in climate and energy investment. Estimate indicates that investment must increase by approximately $2.5 trillion annually by 2030. rising further to approximately $3.3 trillion US dollars annually by 2035. This is not a marginal gap. It is a structural financing deficit that threatens to slow or fragment any global transition. The Climate Policy Initiative and the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero provide further insight. Emerging markets must increase equity investment at an annual rate of approximately 13.1% to reach approximately $375 billion US dollars per year. Now, my friends, these figures highlight the scale and the challenge with reliance on a one-track transition. We must view the realities of our world in this transition. And all of what I'm saying is not to pit one against the other, but for us to understand that the time has come for us to sit together and find a balanced approach to the energy needs of the world, and not to be fighting as to which is better than the other. We must find this balanced approach. Public finance alone cannot close this gap. In many developing countries, investment in renewable energy is heavily dependent on multilateral development finance institutions and concessional financing. The central question, all of this leads to a central and unavoidable question. From where and on what terms will the financing gap for the global energy transition be secured? This is not a theoretical question. It goes to the heart of whether the transition will be global or fragmented, inclusive or unequal, achievable or aspirational, and importantly, would it be truly green and environmentally sustainable? And this brings me to a very important question. Today, ladies and gentlemen, even if we succeed in mobilizing financing, another constraint remains. The energy transition is not only a question of capital, it is also a question of minerals. And it is to that challenge that I now turn. We have examined the widening energy gap. We have examined the scale and insufficiency of investment. Even if we were to resolve both, a third constraint would remain. It is the energy transition is not only a question of energy, it is increasingly a question of minerals. We are moving from a system that is fuel intensive to one that is mineral intensive. The implications of that shift are profound. For the first time in human history, a clean energy future appears within reach at scale. But that future is built not only on innovation and policy, it is built on physical resources drawn from the earth. The transition to renewable energy, electrification, and storage technologies depends on a set of critical minerals, including lithium, cobalt, nickel, copper, graphite, and rare earth elements. The scale of demand is also unprecedented. According to the International Energy Agency, a single electric vehicle requires approximately 6 times the mineral inputs of a conventional vehicle. An offshore wind plant requires up to 9 times more mineral resources that a gas-fired plant of the same capacity requires. These multipliers are not marginal. They represent a structural shift in the composition of global resource demand. The projected growth reinforces this. By 2040, demand for lithium is expected to increase to more than 4 times its 2024 level. Demand for graphite will be doubled. Demand for copper is expected to increase by approximately 27.7%. Demand for nickel is projected to rise by approximately 68.5%, cobalt 49.5%, and rare earth elements 60%. These projections underscores the magnitude of the transition. But they also expose its fragility, finite resources, and depletion risk. Here is the point. Critical minerals are not infinite. Based on current consumption patterns and projected demand, the world faces significant depletion risk. If extraction and recycling practice do not evolve, estimates suggest that by 2050, up to 80% of known global copper reserves will be depleted. 81% of nickel reserves will be exhausted, and nearly 70% of cobalt reserves could be depleted. More than half of all known lithium and graphite reserves could be consumed. So the reality is, fossil fuel and renewables require research and development, investments to make it more efficient and less environmentally damaging. That is the only sustainable pathway, finding this balance through technology and research and development. Let me be clear. These projections are not predictions of inevitability. They are warnings about trajectory. It is the new race, is it? The new race is a mineral exploration versus oil exploration. Therefore, they highlight the urgency of improving extraction efficiency, scaling recycling technologies, diversifying supply, and developing alternative materials. Without these adjustments, the transition risks running into material constraints that could slow progress significantly and expose serious environmental vulnerabilities. The challenge is not only one of quantity, it is also one of geography. Unlike oil, which is found in multiple regions across the globe, critical minerals resources are highly concentrated. As of 2024, Australia and Chile held approximately 58% of global lithium reserves. Indonesia and Australia control approximately 54.4% of global nickel reserve. The Democratic Republic of Congo and Australia accounted for approximately 70.8% of global cobalt reserve. China and Brazil hold approximately 71.4% of global rare earth reserves. Graphite and copper show similar patterns. China and Brazil together account for more than 50% of global graphite reserves. 4 countries, Chile, Australia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Peru, account for nearly half of global copper reserve. This concentration is further intensified at the processing stage. China processes approximately 90% of rare earth elements, 60% of global lithium, and 70% of cobalt. In this global system, and the question is even better put, is this global system comfortable for us in this room? Is this global system politically stable for us across the globe? These are not accidental questions. These are important strategic questions that all of us at the policy level must ask, and not only ask, answer honestly. This level of concentration creates strategic vulnerabilities. Supply chains become exposed to geopolitical tensions. trade restrictions, export controls, and domestic policy shifts in producing countries. And this reality is already upon us as we see today. We have already begun to see the emergence of resource nationalism as countries seek to secure domestic control over critical resources. Export restrictions have been imposed in some cases. In others, governments are prioritizing domestic processing and value addition. At the same time, importing countries are accelerating efforts to secure supply chains through strategic partnerships, domestic exploration, and investment in processing capacity. Some are even considering deep sea mining, a frontier with significant environmental risks. These developments point to a fundamental shift in the geopolitics of energy. The world is at risk of moving from one form of dependence to another. We are not eliminating dependence, we are relocating it from fuels beneath the ground to minerals within it. It is not my purpose to be a prophet of doom. My purpose here is to point out the growing and troubling truth for all humanity and to urge that we all act to avert by cooperation, by policies of inclusion, not exclusion. This is another dimension to this challenge that must be addressed directly. The energy transition is often described as green transition, but the process that underpins it is not without environmental or social consequences. If we are to pursue a sustainable future, we must be honest about these costs and to act to address them swiftly and sustainably. One of the most pressing concerns is water use. The extraction and processing of critical minerals are highly water intensive. Producing a single ton of lithium requires between 1.9 million and 2.2 million liters of water. In 2024 alone, lithium production consumed an estimated 656 billion liters of water, enough to meet the annual domestic needs of approximately 62 million people in sub-Saharan Africa. Looking ahead, water use for lithium extraction is projected to double by 2030 and to increase fourfold by 2040 if current practices persist. This is particularly concerning because many critical minerals are located in water-stressed regions. Estimate indicates that approximately 16% of critical minerals extraction sites are located in such areas. By 2050, the figure could rise to 20%. Mining operations consume approximately 20 million liters of water per day. The environmental footprint of mineral extraction extends beyond water. Mining generates significant waste and pollution. For rare earth elements, each ton extracted can produce approximately 2,000 tons of waste, including radioactive residue and wastewater, as well as dust, harmful gases such as hydrofluoric acid and sulfur dioxide. In 2024, the industry generated approximately 707 million metric tons of toxic waste. To put this into perspective, the number of trucks required to carry that waste would be sufficient to circle our entire planet multiple times. The environmental impacts are there for us to see. Let me also say that the impact on deforestation and biodiversity is also a factor that must be taken into consideration. Between 2001 and 2020, approximately 1.4 million hectares of forests were lost as a result of mining. A global study of over 236,000 mining sites found significant deforestation across 175 countries. More than half of this deforestation occurred in tropical forests, which are critical carbon sinks. Countries most affected include Indonesia, Russia, and Brazil. Studies indicate that approximately 7% of energy transition mineral mines overlap key biodiversity areas, with indirect impact extending far beyond those sites. The International Union of Conservation of Nature estimates that 13,581 species are currently threatened. Nearly half of those risk extinction. In the lithium triangle of South America, extraction has affected more than 400 indigenous communities. In the United States, approximately 79% of known lithium deposits are located within 35 miles of Native American reservations. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, approximately 73.5% of the population live on less than $2.15 US per day, despite the country holding significant mineral wealth. The core question all of this leads to is, are we addressing one environmental crisis while creating another? The answer depends on how the transition is managed. If we pursue decarbonization without regard to resource use, environmental protection, and social justice, we risk shifting the burden rather than reducing it. If we proceed responsibly with improved technologies, and here is where this conference is critical, the focus on improved technology, research and development, finding the most efficient way, the most sustainable way, and that is where the emphasis must be placed. But if you look at the truth, are we incentivizing research and development? Are we incentivizing new technologies? Are we incentivizing carbon capture? These are all critical questions as we move towards achieving the objectives of the planet. If we proceed responsibly with improved technology, stronger governance, and fairer distribution of benefits, we can build an energy balance that is both sustainable and just. And I want to introduce this word, energy balance. I think we should all focus now on this new term. Instead of energy transition, energy balance. How do we achieve energy balance to create a win-win scenario for investors, the planet, and humanity? And surely that should be the shared and common objective of all nations, all governments, and all peoples. Ladies and gentlemen, the global energy balance is therefore shaped by four interlocking realities: a widening energy gap, a financing gap, and a mineral constraint, technology, and system improvement. The question is how nations respond. It is in this context that I turn to the experience of Guyana. Ladies and gentlemen, the realities I have outlined, the widening energy gap, the scale of investment required, the constraint of critical minerals, and environmental and social dimensions of the transition. None are theoretical challenges. They are shaping the choices that every country must now make. It is within this context that Guyana has defined its energy strategy. We have approached this moment with clarity and with discipline. We have rejected the false choice between economic development and environmental stewardship. We have also rejected the notion that the energy transition can be pursued through a single pathway. Instead, we have adopted a deliberate and integrated dual-track approach. We are extracting full value from our hydrocarbon resources, while simultaneously building the renewable and low-carbon systems that will define our future. These objectives do not conflict. Managed properly, they reinforce each other. Guyana's energy strategy is not a single project or a single sector. It is a system-wide transformation. Over the past 5 years, we have moved from policy to execution. Our gas-to-energy project is a cornerstone of this effort. The national grid, investment in the national grid, affordable electricity, improved generation, improved reliability, and significantly lower the carbon intensity of our electrical system are cornerstone of our plans. This, of course, will deepen efficiency, strengthen energy security, and support industrial development. At the same time, we are expanding energy across all 10 administrative regions. This is not confined to urban centers. We have deployed solar farms. We have deployed an energy mix that is most efficient and relevant. Technology that are most efficient and relevant based on environment, geography, and the need. We are also advancing hydropower development. In parallel, we have begun investment in wind energy, recognizing the importance of diversifying our renewable energy mix in creating that balance. We recognize that generation alone is not sufficient. A modern energy system requires robust infrastructure. Therefore, we are upgrading transmission and distribution networks, investing in smart grid technologies, and deploying scaled-up energy storage systems. These investments will improve reliability, reduce losses, enable integration of renewable energy, and create a balanced framework for environment and people. This is essential. Without strong grids and storage, renewable energy cannot fulfill its potential. Guyana's economy is growing rapidly. With that growth comes rising energy demand. We are addressing this proactively. By 2030, we are hoping to have an energy mix and energy balance that celebrate technology around renewables and hydrocarbons. We're looking beyond our borders. Guyana is actively engaging and developing projects that can optimize the potential with Suriname, Brazil, and French Guyana to explore the development of mega-scale regional power infrastructure and interconnection systems that would lead to regional energy integration that offers improved energy security, greater efficiency, expanded opportunities for economic cooperation, redundancy, and an energy system of the future that is not isolated but interconnected. We are also considering ways in which collaboration with other oil and gas producers in the Caribbean can bring greater integration within CARICOM and greater energy interconnection. A clear strategy. Our approach is clear. We're using our hydrocarbon resources to finance the future. We are building isolated projects. We are building a diversified, resilient, and modern energy ecosystem. We are not delaying transition. We are investing in the balance of the future. We are enabling it. Now, Guyana's role in the global energy and climate landscape is distinctive. We are one of the fastest growing oil producers in the world. At the same time, we are one of the most significant net carbon sinks. Our forests cover approximately 85% of our land mass. They sequester more than 150 million tons of carbon annually. They are among the most intact tropical forests on Earth. This is not accidental. It is the result of sustained policy, national commitment, and community stewardship. Guyana has maintained one of the lowest deforestation rates in the world, a fact of which we are very proud. We care about the world, and we are demonstrating it. I'm not lecturing to you. I'm sharing real examples of how we are following our own advice. The Low Carbon Development Strategy provides a framework for integrating environmental stewardship with national development. This is not simply an environmental policy. It is an economic model. It is designed to decouple economic growth from carbon emission, protect natural capital, and generate value from environmental services. Through the LCDS, we have demonstrated that forest conservation can be monetized. Guyana became one of the first countries to issue carbon credits under the R3 standard. This enabled a landmark agreement valued approximately $750 million US. These resources are being reinvested into renewable energy, climate resilience, sustainable livelihoods, and national development. We have also extended our leadership through the Global Biodiversity Alliance. This initiative provides a platform for countries rich in natural capital to advocate for fair value for the global service their ecosystems provide. This is a critical issue. Countries that preserve forests and biodiversity are delivering a service to the world. That service must be recognized, supported, and monetized. Guyana demonstrates that energy production, climate leadership, and biodiversity protection are not mutually exclusive. They are mutually reinforcing. We are showing that a country can, at the same time, produce oil, maintain a net carbon sink, expand renewable energy, and protect its natural environment. We take pride in that. It is the responsible thing to do. We urge others to join us in this endeavor for all mankind and for our own homeland and this planet, Earth. Ladies and gentlemen, the global energy balance is not a simple shift from one system to another. It is a complex transformation shaped by rising demand, constrained supply, uneven investment, emerging dependency, incentives and technology, geopolitical realities, and rising new frontiers. The world requires reliable and affordable energy that is produced with the least impact on the environment and the greatest return on a dollar. And I say most humbly that Guyana fits the bill in all of these criteria. Any investment in energy in Guyana is an investment in a sustainable future and a balanced framework that the world needs. At the same time, it must build a sustainable and low-carbon system for the future. Oil and gas remain essential, and I want to make this very clear. Oil and gas remain essential in the present and does not face an existential threat. Renewables are essential for the future. Critical minerals will determine the pace of change. The challenge is not to choose between them. The challenge is to manage them wisely, responsibly, and in a balanced manner. Guyana has chosen this balanced approach. The future of energy will not be defined by what we abandon. It will be defined by how wisely we manage what the world still requires, how responsibly we build what the future demands, and how fairly we ensure that no country and no community is left behind. This is a challenge before us. That is a responsibility we share, and that is the opportunity we must now seize. Let us redirect incentives, subsidies, and global pricing and policies to finding that balance with research and development and improved technology being the central pillar. I urge all governments, financial and development institutions, and the private sector to seize this opportunity with us in our shared and collective interests. I wish this conference well, and I hope we can all contribute to building a truly sustainable pathway for the balance the world needs in the energy requirement. Thank you, and God bless all of you.